Starting on the night of April 24, 1915, Ottoman authorities rounded up and arrested hundreds of prominent Armenian citizens. In the end, nearly all would be killed. Not long after, Henry Morgenthau, the American ambassador in Constantinople, cabled Washington. His July 16 telegram warned that deportations and excesses against peaceful Armenians were increasing, and from harrowing eyewitness accounts, the ambassador said, it appeared that a campaign of race extermination was in progress.
This is the story of my family, the Zakarians, whose lives were forever changed by that campaign of race extermination. This exhibit, the Armenian Genocide One Family Story, traces the journey of my grandparents, Arek and Movses Zakarian, from the Ottoman Empire to the United States. It honors their legacy while also celebrating Armenian culture in our country today.
As I look around the exhibit, so what strikes me is the timeline. And as we think about a timeline, it's dates and events, etc. The way that this exhibit has been curated, it brings that timeline to life. And it shows us how the individuals, the people who are involved, it brings out their humanity and the life that they lived and the events that impacted their lives. And it brings that timeline to life and puts it into context.
We knew something awful happened to our grandmother, but we didn't know the specifics of it because she was, the word unspeakable means you can't speak about something. And what happened to her, and it was the murder of her husband and the witnessing the beheading of her little children. It's unspeakable. My grandfather came to this country in 1913, hoping to make enough money to bring his family over here. And instead, the events of 1915 intervened, and his wife and his children, he found out several years later, did not survive.
This exhibit, the Armenian Genocide One Family Story, reaches out to tell us, Hos Enk, we are here in Armenian. We are here and we are resilient.
So an exhibit such as this, it takes you through a timeline of events that occurred 100 years ago, but they're occurring today as well. And I think that the more that people can understand what others have gone through, it does a couple of things. It validates those who are going through that experience today because they too have lived through a genocide much more recently. And it educates a much broader audience to have compassion for your neighbor who may have gone through something that you have no idea.
The way this all started just a few years ago was that my brother Alan Arpagian and I were giving a talk about a book we wrote at our local library, and I invited Cynthia to come and hear it. The book is entitled Out of My Great Sorrows, The Armenian Genocide and Artist Mary Zakarian. Mary was our aunt. She's the artist whose work is displayed here. And she had an interesting life, but she, among her siblings, was the one who was most affected by her parents' experiences in the genocide.
Really, the person that brought us to the table, which I think we need to emphasize, is Mary Zakarian herself. She's an artist, or she was an artist, and she was in an exhibition that I curated early on, and it's really her work that started highlighting the Zakarian story. And I think it's really pivotal to understand that sometimes art can be the pathway and gateway into understanding these sort of larger issues and events.
My friendship with Mary was so close that it feels it could not have gotten any closer. Mary did very well when you think about what she had to deal with. The genocide was always in front of her. Mary's paintings reflecting the many faces of her mother has always stood out to me. Her sadness, her hurt, her struggle to survive.
Mother's lament. That to this day, I still think about that picture. I think about it a lot. I think about it when I talk to my friends about the Armenian Genocide, and I think about it a lot, actually, yes.
The Armenian Genocide, One Family Story was first presented at Stockton University in 2022, launching Stockton's Armenian Studies Initiative. It has since traveled to Montclair State University and will continue to travel to other universities. Thousands of high school and college students have toured the exhibit since its inception, engaging in active learning experiences about not only the Armenian genocide, but also genocide prevention, human rights issues, and our shared responsibility to care for one another as a global community.
The Armenian Genocide, One Family Story exhibit launched the Armenian Studies Initiative at Stockton University. This initiative is in the frame of the Master of Arts in Holocaust and Genocide Studies, the MOG program, which I direct. The Armenian Studies Initiative has created a research and teaching focus on Armenian culture and history, including the Armenian Genocide, and we are also interested in exploring the experiences of Armenians, both before and after the genocide, who had fled and settled in southern New Jersey and the Philadelphia area.
Something, in terms of when we returned home from Stockton here to Delran and we were debriefing our visit, one of the biggest things that my kids repeated was they were so glad to have visited the exhibit because even though I showed them multiple personal experiences on our, projector, it was another thing to see artifacts and to see tangible items and tangible stories of Armenian life, both before, during, and after. They really loved the tangibility of the experience, seeing, not just artifacts of genocide, but artifacts of life. So it was an opportunity that really brought every lesson full circle for them.
Our public-facing agenda, which includes lectures, exhibits, and a new continuing studies language course in Western Armenian, is particularly important these days, in view of the forced removal of nearly the entire ethnic Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh, which followed Azerbaijan's attack and occupation of the region in September 2023 after a 9-month-long siege. We are not therefore only dealing with history in the Armenian Studies Initiative, but history is essential for our research and educational endeavors.
The exhibit itself provides a tangible way to spread awareness to the event as a whole and genocide as a whole. And it really allowed our kids to humanize the story of the Armenian genocide when events that happened so long ago are so hard to humanize sometimes. And it allows the students to thoroughly understand the calculated nature of all genocides and human atrocities that they all have in common. Teaching genocide studies isn't just about inspecting past events, it's also about how those past events can help us better understand and address our current issues. So the reality that, genocide is still occurring today, and the reality that we can be and should be preventing it is something that our young students benefit from having that understanding.
It's not just about understanding the story, it's about understanding that this culture is valuable and needed, and without our effort, it's lost. At least that's sort of where I look at it.
My husband is the grandson of Armenian genocide survivors, and this project has been very meaningful to me on both a personal and professional level. Family stories, the sharing of experiences of our parents and our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, speak to us in a way that is uniquely relatable and timeless.
We are who we come from. We are who we were. I am my father's daughter. Those traditions and the stories, my father's stories of his neighborhood growing up, they're me. They're all part of me. And without them, I think I would be an emptier person.
Our hope is that what we show here brings awareness to other populations who have experienced trauma, displacement, migration, and that we can all help make the world a little safer for those who suffer from conditions beyond their control.
This exhibit provides us the opportunity to remember the human factor of every number we study, whether it's 1.5 million Armenians, 6 million Jews, that each of those million people plus more that survived, they're all people with families and experiences.
I think the importance cannot be overstated. I think it is so educational. It is so enlightening in a good and a bad way. I mean, because it's a terrible thing, but you wouldn't know if this exhibit didn't exist and if you didn't go through it. It would just be a story, words in a book. The exhibit gives it dimension and life.
This exhibit is alive. It's a living testimony of the people who represent genocide. Armenians are resilient. They had courage. They had faith. They had confidence. They were forward-looking people. Otherwise, they would not have made it.
On my work table, in this cup, there rests a handful of earth, brought here from the fields of my country. It is a gift, and he who offered it to me thought to enclose his heart therein, without knowing that he was giving me the hearts of his ancestors. I contemplate, perhaps the red color was not born solely through the laws of nature, but rather like a cloth dipped in wounds. It drank from a part of life, a part of the sun, and that it became red, being Armenian earth, like a pure element nothing else has preserved.